We're joined now by Democratic Representative Mike Quigley. He serves on the House Appropriations and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, thank you so much for being here with us. You also live there in the Chicago area, in this state of Illinois, and the events we're seeing in Chicago today are really interesting because this event typically draws in very large crowds. And you were among those today. A lot of people were quite fearful not coming out. How would you say the president's immigration threats are impacting people there in that area?
Yeah, you're right. I just finished walking the Mexican Independence Day parade with my friend Chuy Garcia in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. And you would have to describe it as a neighborhood on edge. But at the same time, reduced crowds, but very much a resilient, proud community that wants to take a stand here. I mean, this was much more than a parade. It was a sense of unity at a difficult time. How it's affecting people, I think we need Exhibit A, our domestic violence court. Women are afraid to show up to get orders of protection. As a result, they're less safe. Schools are starting to talk about teaching remotely again because the parents and the kids are afraid to show up. This isn't a positive impact on anyone. It really puts a city at a disadvantage.
It is kind of remarkable to think about schools considering going remote again. It's like going back in time to COVID times almost.
Yeah, and obviously it has a very detrimental impact on parents, on the kids, their capacities to learn, the stress on schools. They're trying to teach everyone on an equal basis. It's very difficult to do and accomplish at this point in time. And when I watch this and I see those raids, what the American president is doing is, in an economy that is dramatically short of workers, he's going after the 11 million undocumented who provide a critical addition to that economy. When we have press conferences about a comprehensive immigration reform, the hospitality industry, manufacturing, ag, they're all there talking about how vital that community is to our economy and why we must pass comprehensive immigration reform.
The governor there in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, says he's going to fight Trump in court if the National Guard is deployed there. He also says, though, at this moment, he's not been notified of any actions by the White House. I'm curious, what do you know as of today, 4:06 here on the East Coast? What is the latest on the status of all of this?
If the president was serious about actually making communities safer, he would communicate. So I haven't heard anything. Our governor is doing the best he can. He hasn't. There's no effort at communication. And as a result, we're seeing what we're seeing. And the bottom line is we spent more money in Los Angeles putting the National Guard there than it cost to hire 2,000 Chicago police officers. And instead, he cut $820 million in anti-violence programs. We're going in the opposite direction. If he was serious about fighting crime, he would work with us.
The president also reposted on Truth Social earlier today. It was this meme that we talked about just a few minutes ago. And when you look at it, it says Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War, all caps. How do you read that?
Yeah, look, this is a scary time. For those who haven't paid attention, it's time to watch what this president is doing. It's instructive in history to remember that often tyrants are elected democratically at first, right? Putin, Viktor Orban, just to name two. And then they use the very aspects of democracy to bring it down. Here we're seeing the court system, the National Guard, the Justice Department, and so much more. So this is a president edging more and more toward authoritarianism, being a tyrant. You're talking about sending the troops against the public. The former general of the Illinois National Guard, General Hayes, said this could create a permanent stain on the image of the military in our country, and it's very dangerous. He's absolutely right, as is our governor, and this is a time to stand up against this.
Are you comparing the president to Putin?
I'm saying the president is more fond of Putin than he is of democratically elected other presidents. He's never criticized him. He's acting in a manner that Putin would, which isn't often to flaunt the law, but to use it in a way to be destructive of democratic practices. And in that way, he's acting like Putin.
And you mentioned the military. Are you concerned that there would be a negative impact on how people relate to the military because of how they're being used?
Yeah, look, when you're talking about armored vehicles in the city of Chicago, our business leaders came out last week. Our law enforcement came out last week and said this is a bad idea. It's not effective, and it would harm the image of Chicago. It would harm the image of our military and absolutely have no impact on crime. You're not going to keep the military there as a long-term presence. And again, if you were really serious about this, there are ways to combat crime. The trends are in a positive way, but in no way does the city of Chicago think that we've solved these problems. We're willing to work with any administration in lawful means, this isn't one of them, to complete those operations.
And what do you think is the answer here? Because if people are concerned about crime, if there are people out there who are worried about crime in Chicago, what is the solution?
In this morning with Chicago bracing for a federal immigration crackdown this weekend. Last night, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker told our colleague Jen Psaki he still hasn't heard from the White House about its plans, but said they're preparing for agents to invade communities.
It's, I believe, a nefarious plan. It's one that's been repeated over and over again by, well, tyrannical dictatorships across history, where you try to incite local population into some mayhem by sending in police or other disruptors, and then claim that there's too much mayhem on the ground, and therefore there must be troops that are sent in, and that's how you basically convert a democracy into something other than that. And so that is what really worries me here.
In a sign that the Trump administration is planning a repeat of what happened in Los Angeles in June, fencing was put up around a federal courthouse in downtown Chicago in preparation for protests on Friday. Protests gathered outside an ICE facility in the suburbs just west of Chicago that's expected to be used to process people who are taken into custody. The mayor there warned this week of a, quote, large-scale enforcement campaign in the area that could last for up to 6 weeks. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has officially greenlit using a naval base north of the city as a staging ground to launch operations. But on Friday, the state's 2 U.S. senators were turned away when they tried to meet with Homeland Security and ICE officials there.
The fact that DHS refused to meet with us, they actually gave everybody the day off and they left the facility and they locked the doors. This is not the action of somebody that is proud of what they're doing, and this is not the action of somebody that is doing something legal. They fled and they're hiding, and that is a clear indication of how secretive they want to be on this effort. And so we are deeply concerned, and we are going to stay on top of it.
Joining us now is former Congressman Max Rose of New York. He is a senior advisor to Vote Vets, and Maya Wiley, president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Maya, I'm going to start with you because this week, NBC News we have a headline here. Judge rules Trump illegally deployed National Guard and Marines to Los Angeles. The Trump administration violated a 19th century law barring the use of soldiers for civilian law enforcement activities when it mobilized 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to Los Angeles in June. This feels directly tied to what they're seemingly doing in Chicago, no?
Yes, and what Donald Trump has said he's going to do in other cities. I mean, he mentioned New Orleans. He's talked about New York. He's definitely identifying cities that are run by Democratic mayors.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some that look like us.
I was going there. I was going there with you, Gene. But also, no matter what a court says and no matter what the law says. And remember, he hasn't said, all his lawyers will say is, he didn't invoke the Insurrection Act.
Right.
The Insurrection Act would have been the way he could say it's not a violation of this law, posse comitatus. If we just make it really plain and simple, he couldn't invoke the Insurrection Act. There's no insurrection.
Right.
There's no invasion. What he's doing is really saying, I am, I think, distracting from my problems by throwing out fear-mongering, trying to distract all of us into whether, or, he's using the crime metaphor for Washington, D.C., despite the radical reduction in crime rates there. He's using this, he's done the same thing with immigrants, right? Where he said he's used invasion language quite intentionally, including at the beginning of his administration in his executive orders. It was because he always planned to use this crime narrative and immigrants as criminals to do exactly what he's doing. It was in Project 2025.
Right, exactly.
This was up at Governor Pritzker's right. It was a playbook, but it is not a playbook on public safety. It's actually a playbook making us less safe. And that's part of what the judge is saying is local law enforcement is for local law enforcement, and police officers right now are saying this is making it more difficult for us to do our jobs. And instead of making sure we're getting crime prevention monies to police departments, training funds, the things that we're helping to get guns out of neighborhoods and prevent gun violence, he cut those things. But he's created what essentially has become his police force, and he's using it as his personal army, instead of allowing elected leaders and
are obviously furious because what Trump is saying is, I'm declaring war on American citizens. As I discussed yesterday, I don't have a lot of issues with the changing of the name to Department of War because I feel like that is probably more honest, because the American military doesn't primarily defend the United States. Since World War II, it's been predominantly preoccupied with invading other countries, often without pretext, right? So, much like it should be the Israeli offense forces, right? Not defense forces. Like, I get it. So it's good because it rips the mask off the fascism, right? But what you see Trump saying is, this is why I'm calling it the Department of War. So he's shedding any filter. He's shedding even the thinnest layer of propaganda that, I'm not actually sending in the military, the National Guard, whatever, the Department of Defense, broadly defined, now the Department of War, to do sort of like peacekeeping in the cities, law enforcement in the cities, surveillance. Maybe they're going to go in and clean up garbage. Like, literally, they're going to go help clean up the streets, right? He's like, no, I'm declaring war on a city, an American city. A city, mind you, that does not have the highest crime rates. I'm not saying Chicago is perfect. I'm not saying there's parts of the city that couldn't be better. But there are red cities, and especially many red rural areas, that have much higher per capita crime rates. And so Donald is saying, I am a fascist dictator, and I'm going to use my forces to invade fellow citizens. This man must be stopped.